just doing some decorating here, and what? I feel like I'm being watched. It's a good thing I always keep our firearm here on the recliner when I'm decorating. And oh, it's just decoration. No. Hello. Welcome to day 2 of 31 days of Halloween 2016. It's me, Chris, and duh, right? You knew that. I'm sure since you clicked on the video. Here I have, kids, on day 2, another mask. I'm going to wear a different mask every day, probably. I have a bunch of masks. I'm a mask collector, so I'm going to try to do that every day. Here I have one that, I'm going to turn on this light so you can see it a little better, that I think is pretty interesting. I will pick up masks that I think are cool, just when I'm at the store during Halloween time. This was like a regular flesh-toned dude, right? It was just a guy face mask. And I saw it at a local Albertsons. That's a grocery store for those who may not be from this area. And I was like, you know what? It was cheap. I like it. It's got this really cool, like it's supposed to move when you talk. I need some serious facial treatment. But anyway, I don't know what that means. But it had this cool texture, and it's, it's latex, but it's very thick and foamy. It's foam latex, and then you got the moving mouth. And I thought, I don't know, I'll use it for something at some point because it's creepy. And then I forgot I had it. And it was in the closet for years. But then, when I was teaching a few years ago, we were doing Poe, one of my favorite authors, and actually favorite American author. And I said to myself, you know what? Masque of the Red Death. That was a selection in the book. And the description, I've always wanted to do a Halloween costume of Masque of the Red Death, except that I figured nobody would know what it was. And so the character of the Red Death at the masquerade party of the prince, he, or it, has this deathly, like, corpse face, and then and it's got splotches of the Red Death, which is blood, and then the whole of its burial garments, which, is probably like a shroud. They were wrapped with shrouds back then, covered in blood. So I took a old sheet, and I put fake blood all over it, of my own design, which I will talk about my formula or my recipe for fake blood in a future installment. And then I put it on this mask, and first I made it white with some, just some white makeup, added some of the fake blood, and then right before we started that unit on the Red Death and reading it in class, bam, came in as the Red Death. Which of course everybody knew was me, but still, it was a good visual. So that's my Red Death mask there, and it's the closest approximation. One day I'll venture out, and maybe people will just be creeped out, and maybe somebody will say, oh, hey, that's the Masque of the Red Death. That's the Red Death from the story. Probably not. But anyway, hey kids, second day of 31 days of Halloween 2016, and yesterday's entry, I'm an audio guy, I'm a podcast guy, so I'm new to the whole video thing. I'm experimenting with it. I really liked my opening yesterday with coming up the stairs. That coming in the house, then up the stairs, that was my homage to the amazing opening scene of John Carpenter's Halloween, 1978, the best of that series. And so, the rest of it was, it was okay. But I'm going to get better with each one, and so I'm going to make this one a little more easy, as you saw already in the intro here. So I hope, my point, I hope you'll forget my naivete with video production. Big words. So on this installment, kids, really quickly, I am going to give you my thoughts on a found footage horror movie. Now, I really like found footage horror movies. If you're not sure what that is, that's, the conceit of these movies is that somebody recorded everything that was happening to them in this horrible scenario, and they are dead or disappeared or nobody knows where they are, and they find the footage, and then they made that into a movie. So you suspend quite a bit of disbelief, but I enjoy those because it makes you're right in the action, and I like that feeling. So, especially for a horror movie, because I think it makes it more frightening, and that's what it should be. If it's, as much as I like classic horror movies, if it's something set in some old castle in the, out in the Middle Ages, well, it's not really all that relative to us, right? But if it's set in a neighborhood, that could be anywhere, or the woods, then yeah, man, it's creepy. So, The Houses October Built is a film that was made in 2014, I believe, and the premise is very simple. It's a group of friends who love Halloween, haunted houses. Okay, now we're not talking about like paranormally haunted. We're talking about the kind of haunted houses people put on each Halloween. And they're looking for the most frightening, what are called haunts. They call these haunts. So they go out and they go through Texas, and then they find out that Louisiana has one, right? And Louisiana has some really cool haunted houses, some that are actually quite controversial, like there's one in New Orleans. It's got a lot of demonic worship attached to it. But anyway, that's an entirely different installment, perhaps. So I loved it the first time I saw it, but it was a couple of years that I saw it, and I rewatched it this weekend, and I decided that I would share my thoughts really briefly with you. I highly recommend this movie. It's not perfect, no movie is. For what it is, though, it will definitely creep you the hell out, and what more do you want from a movie during Halloween, right? So I am going to take a short break right here, and the break is me showing you the trailer for the movie, and then when I get back, my thoughts on The Houses October Built.
Tell me about yourself and what are we doing?
You want my name? My name is Zach. You've known me for 20 years, Mikey. I rented an RV. I want to find the most extreme haunted house in the world.
What is an extreme haunt? I don't understand how far you really can go on without hurting somebody. What's your name, buddy? Hi, Mikey.
What's the camera for? Are you doing Crime Stoppers or cops or something?
We're doing To Catch a Predator.
To Catch a Predator? I gotta go!
You wanna be a pretty dolly like me?
What's going on? Do you care if we ask you some questions? I'm with all this group of people, and we're trying to find something extreme. Hey, we got it. It's in Louisiana this year.
We don't have an address, though.
This is where they said to go.
Is that the girl from the haunt?
She didn't really say anything.
Something happened to your car?
Look what we have here. It's an invitation.
This is not a haunt. We're in the middle of nowhere in our RV.
Yeah, I know. It's what we've been wanting.
One more day. It's all Halloween. We go home tomorrow. Hey, wait up! Wait up!
What's that? Shh. Somebody's on the roof.
What just happened?
Brandy, stay back.
You wanna come out and play?
Alright, so that's the trailer for The Houses That October Built. Came out in 2014, and let me just really briefly, why would you want to watch this? Well, for one thing, it is on Netflix. If you have Netflix streaming, it's free. I mean, it's not free, but it's one of the offerings there. When I first saw it, I paid for it. I think I remember getting it on Amazon because it was not yet on Netflix. Now it is, and I think it was off for a while and came back just in time for the Halloween season. It has some truly creepy just makeup effects. There's no CGI. There's no there's not even any gore in this movie, which I was really impressed with. And they go to actual haunted houses throughout Texas and then also perhaps Louisiana. Now, some of this is fictional, right? But they were actually able to film in some of these. I'm sure they got permission. Usually you can't, but they were making a movie, and what better publicity than to be even in one of these independent films. That's good publicity these days. So I'm sure that the owners said, yes, this film right off the bat, the negative about it is that you have these 5 characters who are, they're lifelong friends. They're going to look for the top 5 most intense, extreme haunted houses they can find, and you don't really know the characters. You're not going to remember them. Like in Blair Witch Project, you remember those 3 characters. You know them and their distinctive personalities. Here, they kind of just all run together. But it doesn't matter because their stuff that happens to them is creepy and cool, and so you're like, oh my god, what if I was there with them and this was going on? This would be scary, and that's why it's cool. So you've got the stuff going on with the haunted houses, already itself scary, but then you've got the really messed up stuff that goes on. Again, there's no gore, there's no CG, it's just really effective use of camera work, lighting, costumes, and I'm not going to tell you any more than that. I highly recommend it. Don't care for the character work. I don't think it's very good. But I think that the overall storyline is really, really inventive because it's never been done before. And there's a documentary style. So they actually interview people who work at these haunts throughout the country, but they mainly go to Texas and then they, I think, go to one in Louisiana. And then they ask not only the people that work at them, the owners, questions, and people who go through them questions. And some really interesting facts, like, how about this? Some of these haunted attractions don't have background checks for their workers. Creepy. So somebody jumping out at you in one of these things, like maybe it's in a cornfield somewhere, or down here it would be a cane field, yeah, they might be, who knows. In fact, there have been cases of pedophiles and murderers getting involved with these. No background check, nobody knew, and they do some horrible things. So that's kind of the premise, and it's always in your mind. So there's an element of realism to this movie that makes it all the more creepy. This is not a movie for kids. It's rated R, so anybody under 17, and then even then, you want to use your discretion. But I think it's an excellent film. It's short. It's about 90 minutes or less, if I recall, but really good found footage. It's not too much shaky cam. You're not going to get nauseous like Cloverfield kind of overdid it. Blair Witch Project never bothered me. It's bothered some people. But this is no Blair Witch Project, but it's really good. It's also no Paranormal Activity, but I still think it's really great. The ending, I will not spoil, except that I will say this. You're going to watch that ending, and you're going to go, okay, there were 2 other better endings that were in the movie that they could have set up that they didn't. That is right there begging you to say, hey, this is where the ending needs to go. Like, I'm expecting this to be the ending, and it's not one of those things where it's like, here's what you expect to be the ending, and the reason it's good is because it wasn't what you expected. It's one of these movies where, okay, what I expected would have been really cool and would have tied in, and I think they missed it, but I think they had probably their reasons creatively to not do that. Anyway, The Houses October Built. It is on Netflix Stream. Of course, you can also pay for it. It's on Amazon. There you'll have to pay a rental fee. You can also get it on DVD Blu-ray if you're one of the folks like myself who still likes the physical copies. Don't know if I'd buy this movie, but maybe, because it is really entertaining. So check it out, The Houses October Built. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to share this video and tell people about 31 Days of Halloween 2016. We'll have another installment tomorrow. Thanks again. Be careful out there as we get closer to Halloween.